Welcome, travelers, to another episode of the Time Travel Trio podcast. I'm Jen.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Hyde.
And we're
the Time Travel Trio.
No, that was off. We gotta do it again. And we're
the Time Travel Trio.
There you go.
You're out of sync.
Yeah, out of time. Okay, so today was my choice.
What did you pick?
I figured eventually we'd have to do it, so people will stop asking us. So
it's like the only biggest franchise that we haven't done yet.
Really the only biggest movie that we haven't talked about yet, to be honest. Or biggest series. But we're doing Terminator. Yay!
Yay!
Woo!
Terminator and T2.
Yeah, we're doing
the
first two, and then we're gonna do later down the road. We're gonna do a second episode, kind of talking about mostly Genesis, and then we might touch on Salvation and T3. So, yeah, this is exciting, right?
Very.
Woohoo!
Doing it. I'm excited.
Are you?
Yeah.
We watched about 5 hours of Terminator last night, so
That's
that was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot, but I mean they're good movies. You know, like I can see why people like them a lot, but 5 hours of it is a little much.
That's intense. I spread mine out. I watched Terminator 1, and then a few days later I saw Terminator 2. I own both. So
yeah, that's probably the smart way to do it. We didn't have time, so we just watched them both last night, and I'm still a little tired. It was a lot of
Terminator.
A lot of old LA.
Yeah, which was kind of cool.
Time capsule movie.
Yeah, I always appreciate movies that actually shot in LA. You know, a lot of times now they don't shoot things here anymore, and so it's like set in LA, but it's obviously not. If you live here, you can tell.
Yeah, I saw earlier this week on an article about kind of how James Cameron filmed it in LA, and I guess he filmed it while they were spraying for bugs in LA. So the haze you saw in the city was real pesticide that they were like trying to get rid of bugs for. So it added to the ambiance. He's like, let's keep it in there.
That's funny. Yeah, we'll get into it for sure. Initial thoughts. I think Hyde and I have seen this before, but you haven't seen these, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen probably more of T2 throughout the years, just clips of him with the kid and all that stuff. Obviously, all the one-liners that they have in the movie, but I never actually definitely never seen T1 in any sense. I don't think nothing seemed familiar besides his first arrival and give me your clothes. Mm-hmm. But yeah, T2 I kind of knew more about. I kind of knew what was going to happen. I knew they're going to end up in a steel mill and all that stuff. But yeah, my first time pretty much for both of them.
Okay. How did you feel watching it again?
Oh, I mean, I own both the movies. I had the collector's editions. I've always been a big fan of Terminator and Terminator 2. Mm-hmm. I actually saw Terminator 2 before I saw Terminator 1.
Really?
Yeah, as a kid, it was on TV, and my parents and I were watching Terminator 2. And then eventually I saw Terminator 1. And I could kind of see why Terminator 1 is... Terminator 1 feels more violent than Terminator 2. Even though there's more action in Terminator 2, I feel like Terminator 1 is more menacing violence.
The thing that when we finished Terminator 1... It's pretty much a horror movie.
Yeah, it's like a slasher. It's shot like a slasher movie.
Well, yeah. At first, it's a gun movie where shooting and all that stuff, and then once he becomes the exoskeleton, it really is a monster movie where he's just chasing them down, and it keeps coming back, and it's the monster effects of the stop motion, the Harryhausen kind of effects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked it. I've seen these movies before. I haven't seen them in a really long time, so it kind of was oh yeah, I forgot about that. So in some ways it was like watching a new movie because it's just been so long. I haven't seen the first one in, decades probably, but I've seen the second one a number of times. I own the second one. I still think they could have just ended this series after 2.
I think a lot of
people would have been great.
It's a pretty solid... original movie and sequel, because they did a lot of stuff in the sequel that kind of tied back to the first. Obviously, the similarities between Reese and the second Arnold, the good one. He obviously has the same lines. He kind of reminds Sarah about him a little bit in certain ways. Mm-hmm. He's just come with me if you want to live. She's that's what Reese told her pretty much.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff kind of paid off in the second movie. That I thought I was oh, okay, cool. I can see how this is a solid sequel to the first movie.
Yeah, it definitely adds more to the story and kind of the backstory about the future, which I really liked. But yeah, I think I don't think we really needed to see or keep seeing more of this world. I mean, it's interesting enough, but it doesn't need 5 movies.
Yeah, Terminator 3, which we'll get into later, I don't want to get into. Terminator 3 basically, not retcons, but basically destroys the thesis statement of the first 2 films. And then Terminator Salvation is just bad. I saw it for my birthday. It's just a bad movie. One of the worst movies I've seen. That starts off very strong and then becomes horrible. I haven't seen Genesis yet, so I'm excited to see that.
Yeah.
I will say, however, I did like the Sarah Connor Chronicles TV show, which is a prequel, and basically it bridges the gap between... It's basically like not a retcon, but it's almost like after Terminator 2, how do they keep surviving, knowing that more more cyborgs are going to still keep coming back to like try to kill John Connor, and it's her just trying to train John Connor into becoming like a super soldier. But it was started Lena Headey who plays Cersei on Game of Thrones. Summer Glau's in it. Thomas Dekker, who should get more work, is also in it. It's a really good show. Unfortunately, I think it was just you had to be really into the Terminator franchise to appreciate it, and I happen to be, and I guess just not enough people else were.
Yeah. That I could see how there would be an appeal for that. If there weren't any other movies and it was like just that series came out later, I think it probably would have been more popular.
Yeah.
But it's almost like Marvel fatigue. It's like it's been almost more than 30 years since this series started.
Right.
But I there's more bad things than good things.
Yeah. It's like if you're a fan, you're like, wait, is this like canon? Is this like an alternate reality? Is this like a stem of some other sequel that, isn't from the first 2? But like, if you were to say, oh, think of only the first 2, this is after that, that would have been better, but there's so many things going on now.
But I can't wait to watch Genesis, actually, because I think that'll be really interesting, because I know the plot for that is, goes back to the first movie.
Yes.
And kind of changes it. So that'll be really fun for us to kind of dissect in a few episodes. So looking forward to that. I do actually like that John Connor is constantly changed by actors. I mean, it's obviously a necessity,
right, because
of how he ages and different, time periods of the movies. But I like that in each movie, it's a different actor playing him. And it kind of is like a little bit James Bond-ish in that way. And I liked that, actually. I like that idea with this cast and these people, that it's kind of like, these are the same characters played by different people, and it doesn't really matter, and no one really seems to have a problem with it.
As long as Arnold's there.
As long as he's there. He's
Arnold
really,
has to be there.
Yeah. That's, everything else is kind of...
He shows up in Terminator Salvation while he was still governor. I mean, it's a CGI
that's great.
version of young Arnold, but it's still there.
It's funny. I know, when we were watching I think it was during the first one, I was like, that man was the governor of California.
Governor of California, man.
Yeah. So let's start with getting into The Terminator, which is the first one. Came out in 1984. Here's the plot synopsis. A seemingly indestructible humanoid cyborg is sent from 2029 to 1984 to assassinate a waitress whose unborn son will lead humanity in a war against the machines, while a soldier from that war is sent to protect her at all costs.
Pretty
Feels
accurate.
like that could have been a shorter sentence, but...
It's an accurate one. We usually don't see a lot of accurate ones on IMDb.
That's what's going on.
Is the new Blade Runner, is that 2029?
No, 2049.
2049. Okay.
2049.
I was going to say.
They pushed it back. They were like, ooh.
Okay.
I mean, even though that even 2049 is clearly an alternate reality, but it's still, they're like, oh, it's further.
Yeah. So this movie, of course, written, directed by James Cameron. And
Gail Ann Hurd.
And Gail Ann Hurd also wrote
it. Which apparently they were married, not during this movie, but shortly after this movie.
Yeah, who wasn't
from like
married
85 to 89 or something like that.
He's also married to Linda Hamilton and, of course...
Catherine
Bigelow, so, obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's his best known role, I'd say.
He was a bad guy, obviously, in the first one, but the second one, I can see how everyone's like, oh, okay, this Arnold guy's pretty cool, because he's, like, cracking jokes, and...
Yeah, you still kind of like him, even though he's the bad guy in the first one, I still was kind of like, yeah, I still like him, he was an interesting kind of portrayal of the character.
Well,
so
originally James Cameron wanted him to play Kyle Reese, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was like, "No, that's a terrible idea. I should play the Terminator." He was like, "Trust me, I'm going to be much more menacing as it. He's like, if you have me as Kyle Reese, then you have to make the cyborg like this,
like 8 feet tall.
Well,
Right.
see, what's interesting is that I actually read that he auditioned for Kyle Reese, and James Cameron wanted him to be the Terminator.
Oh, I don't
So,
know. I've heard different things.
I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows?
But I did read that OJ was actually considered for the Terminator,
I
but
did hear that.
but they thought
Oof.
he was too nice.
Yes. Isn't that crazy
That
to
would've
think
been-
of?
Insane
crazy?
if during the OJ trial there's like all these clips
There
of him
would've-
as a Terminator.
There would have never been any more of
like-
these
like-
movies, I'll tell you that.
like him just going after a white woman, just like
Oh God.
like that would have been
yeah,
Oh,
no, I
jeez.
think on many counts this
Oh God.
was, casted correctly. It is whitewashed for sure, but that's, it's 84.
No black people would ever stick around. As soon as he heard, in Terminator 1, as soon as he heard there's a guy coming out to kill you, you'd be like, well, we're leaving town. It's
Yeah,
like,
right.
There's no...
Yeah.
You don't stick around for that.
but
we
I mean,
didn't go to the police. There's no... we're not
But
going
I
to
do
the police.
want to talk about Michael Biehn, who, of course, we have previously talked about from Clock Stoppers.
Yep.
He's the bad guy in Clock Stoppers, good guy in this movie. He plays Kyle Reese. Beautiful face. I just love him. He's great. I really enjoyed him. And, of course, Linda Hamilton is a badass, especially in the second movie. But even in this one, she still has some moments. So.
Yeah. In the first one, she kind of gets into like the horror movie like survivor role, but in the second one, she's full on badass.
Yeah. So let's watch the trailer for the first one.
In the 21st century, a weapon will be invented like no other. This weapon will be powerful, versatile, and indestructible. It can't be reasoned with. It can't be bargained with. It will feel no pity, no remorse, no pain, no fear. It will have only one purpose: to return to the present and prevent the future. This weapon will be called the Terminator.
You're dead, honey.
What day is it? The date!
12th May, Thursday.
What year?
I'm here to help you. I'm Reese. DN 38416, assigned to protect you. You've been targeted for termination.
Why does it want me? Why me?
Arnold Schwarzenegger is the Terminator. Your future is in its hands.
I like that it's it. In
Yes.
its hands.
It's hands.
I want to... That trailer made me question, how did they know that the Terminators were targeting Sarah Connor and they knew to go to that specific time? How did they know to follow them?
They meant the Terminators?
No. How did, Michael Biehn know where they were going?
Because John told him.
Oh.
Yeah, because he knew.
Okay.
John prepared him before he left.
Oh, right, because of... Okay,
Yeah.
we'll get into that. Okay.
Mhm.
That was a fun trailer.
Yeah, very interesting. It's funny how you could clearly see the sound effects are really muted and almost kind of downplayed
Mhm.
in it. Trailers are not seen as they are today. Everything's now, and trailers are so loud. And here's just it's really more about the visuals.
Mhm.
Nothing else is really here. We're not trying to make the gunshots sound loud or anything like that. Just just watch the film.
Yeah, it's fine. You can see it's an action movie and stuff. So if you've never seen this movie, you should watch it. It is rated R, and so there is some language, but it's not
There's
that
some
bad.
boobs in the first one.
You see some pee-pee, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Boobies and pee-pee.
A little. I mean, it's in shadows, but
You
it's
can
there.
still see it. You can see it. I wrote nice dick. on my notes. Let's just jump right into the time travel. The rules for the first and second one are pretty much the same. It's just different aspects of how they're used. So in the first movie, they're sent back, and it's kind of like, looks like lightning flashes and kind of beams of light sort of thing. And then we see them naked and appeared.
Naked and afraid.
Naked and afraid.
No, yeah, so basically, the way that we understand it, we never see them actually leave the future to get to the past, but when they arrive, they're naked because the thing that sends it back in time, it uses the field generated by a living organism, which is why the Terminators have a living outer, like, skin, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
That part's living. The inside's all metal and all that stuff. But in order to be sent back in time, they had to have some kind of, like, living shell. So that's kind of what the idea is. There's a lot of electricity. And in the second one, we see, like, a sphere around them that kind of destroys the world around it. Like, Arnold...
It's like an energy bubble, almost.
Yeah, it cuts out part of a truck, and the T-1000, it cuts out, like, a hole in the fence. So it kind of, like, destroys what's there and, like, pops them in there into the past.
But that's in the second one. In the first one, that doesn't really happen, or at least we don't really see it. There's just electricity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we only see the future in flashbacks.
Yeah, technically, the character,
It's technically a character's flashback because Kyle Reese has come from the future back to the past.
Yeah.
So it's his flashback to his past. So the rules for this time travel, though, I mean...
Well, they keep saying that the future isn't set. So basically, things can be changed. However, the way we see them in the first one is how they always happened.
Yeah, that kind of confuses me because they do act like, okay, you can change the past. But by the end of the movie, it's kind of like, no, everything that happened always happened.
Right.
So nothing has changed. So it seems like you can't actually change anything. But then in the second movie, it kind of ends and is like, the future's in flux now, whatever. So maybe it just has to be a bigger catalyst for change.
Well, yeah, the thing with the first one is they were trying to prevent the change because he was trying to kill Sarah before John was born. They wanted to prevent that so that John was still alive. So in the second one, they were trying to stop Skynet. In the first one, they're trying to prevent death.
But the problem is, though, that's because Kyle Reese is John's dad, so that's how it always happened. He always went back to stop the Terminator.
I know. What I'm saying is, like, we didn't see anything change because they were trying to prevent that from happening.
Right, because the first time before Cybernet was invented, so the original timeline, whatever the original origin timeline was, John's just born normally. Who knows who his father actually is? But he has a son who ends up becoming John Connor.
But his father is always Kyle.
Yeah,
that's the problem with that.
So it is a time paradox. So it's like a predestination type thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a paradox, but it's not like a plot hole because that's just how it happened. But that's what I'm saying. Like the first movie, we're led to believe that things can't be changed because you see them not change, But they're saying that things can be changed.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it is a little murky, but it works.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it because, like, right before the second one, they're like, okay, let's just kill this Terminator, and then, like, that way he'll still be alive. And the second one, like, okay, let's actually change things. Let's go and stop Skynet from being made.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they kind of see the future isn't set yet. That idea.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess what I like about the second one with that is that we don't actually see proof whether or not it worked. At least not at the end of the second movie. So, because the war, the nuclear explosion, whatever, hasn't happened yet. Mm. And so even when they stop it, it still hasn't happened yet. So, we don't know if in this universe time can course correct itself where someone else invents this machine, whatever, or if because, what's his name, Dyson died, that it will not be made at all, which is what they were trying to achieve. So it's kind of up in the air, but it's not, as we say, it's not necessarily a plot hole. It's just...
It also depends who you ask. If you ask James Cameron, yes, they solved it. If you ask the studio heads, no.
Yeah, that's true.
It definitely, like, they obviously wiped out all the data. They destroyed all of the Terminator stuff. So, like, you're led to believe, yes, they removed all of it from existence.
But there's always easy ways to say, well, there wasn't the only one of this, there wasn't the only one of that, or someone else has the knowledge and invented it.
Right, and that's what they basically do in Terminator 3.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But if we're going just by these two movies, then... it's kind of up to you. Do you think that they did it? Do you think that it's still going to happen? it kind of, which is why I like the idea of it ending just at the second movie.
Right.
But, you know. So consequences of this type of time travel, pretty dire.
You really screw up the future.
Yeah. But the interesting thing is that the time travel isn't the cause of, you know, all this destruction
Right.
and the war, which I feel like in a lot of movies that we talk about, time travel is often the cause of the problem. Like,
Right.
because they time traveled, so-and-so happens, or because, you know, someone invented time travel, it created this and whatever. But in this, it's just kind of, time travel also exists.
Yeah, this I just thought about this. It reminds me a lot of 12 Monkeys, how after some cataclysmic event, we're led to believe that humans still invented time travel. Or I guess the robots might have invented it in this one.
Yeah.
But it's like, if after nuclear war, they still decided to invent time, I guess you have a motivation, but still it's like, you'd be hindered to like discover this insane power, you know?
Yeah,
the
which
future.
in that sense it is a little bit frustrating that we don't have pretty much any knowledge of how the time travel was invented, who invented it, how it works, any of it. Like, I don't know, sometimes I picture maybe it's like a big tube like Looper or Deja Vu or something that someone like sits inside of, or, you know, who knows.
Supposedly
or they
in
just beamed up.
Genesis, they do explain it more. I've not seen the movie. They do explain
Okay.
how the time travel works, so that'll be interesting.
So we might be able to kind of delve into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay.
But here we kind of just know they're from the future and
Yeah.
they're sent back to the past, and that's pretty much all we have to go on.
It exists and it works.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So let's watch, before we continue, let's watch the trailer for the second one, since we've been talking about it, so that we can kind of see what's up.
Same make.
These were taken at the West Highland Police Station, 1984. You were there.
Same model.
These were taken today.
You have to let me see my son. He's in great danger.
New mission. Once, he was programmed to destroy the future.
I don't know what it's like to try to kill one of these things.
Now, his mission
Get down.
is to protect it.
Come with me if you want to live.
You're really real.
His loyalty is to a child,
Who sent you?
You did. 35 years from now.
and his enemy
He's a Terminator like you, right?
Not like me.
is the deadliest machine ever built.
Can it be destroyed?
Unknown.
This time, there are two. Terminator 2.
You just can't go around killing people.
Why?
If you thought you had seen it all, look again.
Stay down!
Go! Now!
We gotta stick together!
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Terminator 2, Judgment Day. This time, he's back. For good.
Trust me.
Except he's not back for good, but...
Well, he's back to do good. That's what the...
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's why
It
it's the
sounded
turn of
like
phrase.
he's back for good.
Yeah, but it's turn of phrase.
So in this one, Arnold Schwarzenegger plays quote-unquote the same cyborg, but this time he goes back to protect John. So John from the future sent him back to help him and Sarah. And what's interesting is that in this movie, he learns how to reprogram these, which is kind of cool. So we get to see that kind of play out, and like, oh, that's how he knows how to fix it and adjust it and whatever, and he's
Right.
good with technology. So that was kind of a cool
Mm-hmm.
like writing full circle thing. The second one was also directed and written by James Cameron and was also co-written with William Wisher. And again, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton. This time Edward Furlong plays John Connor, who's age 10, and Robert Patrick plays T-1000, who's liquid metal,
Yeah.
which is cool. The shot of him like coming into the helicopter and then
Yeah.
like forming is so iconic.
It's so
with the sunglasses and the helmet and everything. It's
get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for early '90s, like it still looks pretty cool. I mean, at least the idea of it. Like, obviously, it's like just like a no skin 3D model, but that's what it is. You know, like you don't feel like it looks cheap because it's metal, so it looks reflective and it looks like there's no texture until he becomes a human being.
Right, and also they do a very good job of having the 3D move objects and interact with real things, so it feels more real. Like his arm goes through glass, he opens up the elevator, he like goes through the bars. It makes it. It's funny how Terminator 2 Judgment Day CGI holds up better than some movies that I've seen like 6 years ago.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes,
I was going to
indeed.
say the effects in this movie are pretty good.
Yeah.
Like even still watching it, you can tell some stuff is dated and whatever, but it's pretty good effects for 1991.
Yeah.
It's impressive. So.
And there's all like practical stuff too. Like they have just actual stuff blowing up. They have like models. Like I think he's dragging along the car, you see like an actual object dragging. It's not like a CG person on the back. It's like, oh, they just strapped him to the back of the car and made it swing to the streets.
All of it adds to it, and I mean, I can definitely see why. I mean, this is ranked pretty high.
It won 4 Oscars.
Mm-hmm.
T2. I think it won sound, maybe. Yeah, best sound, best sound effects editing, best visual effects, and best makeup. It was also nominated for cinematography and film editing. So definitely makeup, definitely visual effects, sound effects. Like it deserved to win. It was a good movie. This is still a really great movie.
Yeah, it's definitely like if you're gonna launch only one Terminator movie, you should make it Terminator 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I think watching the first one does make this one a little bit better because you kind of see the parallels and the similarities and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because it pays off the story,
It does.
in the moments of the Terminator with John, like those moments are pretty cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was like an Iron Giant kind of thing. He's like teaching him, and
Yeah, that was cool. There was a lot of fun, more light moments I felt in this one than in the first one.
Yeah.
And yeah, I liked his relationship with John. I thought that was fun to watch.
They had chemistry.
Yeah, that was cute. Yeah, I like that it was more about their relationship than like John and his mom trying to make amends and whatever, which it easily kind of could have been. And some parts of that were in it, but it was more about John's relationship with the Terminator and how that ends up shaping what he decides to do in the future.
Yeah,
which I think is
like
pretty
a
cool.
surrogate father.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he's also like 30 minutes longer than the first one, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's a bit longer. I thought it was interesting. So in the first Terminator, Sarah Connor is, I guess, 18. I read that she's portrayed to be age 18.
Yeah, I was thinking
so in
like,
this one, which
early 20s or whatever.
It makes sense. I mean, she's still young, but yeah, okay. So and then in this one, she's about 30-ish. Because it's set in 95.
Yeah.
So John is 10.
Makes sense. I mean, and it's also very nice because, I mean, like you said in the first movie, even though she's actually, I mean, to be fair, like, it would be very cheap to classify her as a damsel in distress because literally in Terminator 1, he takes out an entire police force. So to call her a damsel in distress is kind of insulting. It's like she survives when literally men with guns didn't. But
I mean, she's like a horror movie victim that like survives. You know what I mean? She's the survivor of the story.
Yeah, the last girl, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And then by the second one, she's
a motherfucking badass.
Right.
Yeah.
Dude.
Like she like has like a big jump in terms of her like ability, but it makes sense because he basically went into like mom mode and like to protect my son, I have to become strong.
Yeah, you totally believe it. And John kind of mentions that she would, sleep with or befriend these different types of guys to learn skills from them and then dump them.
Right.
Which I think is pretty cool, actually. But she breaks out of a mental hospital with a paperclip. That's amazing.
Right.
She's the coolest.
Yeah.
So
I know. Yeah, that scene was great because, like, obviously it's the first time she sees the new Arnold, and like the moment for her character, it's like, oh my god, this happened all over again.
like she'll do anything to get by the time she like gets to the elevator and then sees him, she's so scarred by what he did, understandably,
yeah,
that she
been,
literally
like,
turns
tortured.
back the other direction, like that
it's a
is
great
saying
scene.
something. Yeah.
It's a great scene because you're like, oh my gosh, because like she's not ready to fight the T100 like on face on, like it's like not ready. And then of course the T1000 is even more powerful, which is a great anti. A lot of action movies like they make the villain like a destroyer of worlds to be more powerful than the hero. And this one, it's not that he's like so much more powerful.
He's just
than
advanced.
Arnold. He's advanced. It's like basically like an upgrade. It's like what would make Arnold's character even more threatening, but still keep it like you can believe this came from the same string. Like this exists in the same universe.
Yeah, you're so right. And I also had a note that I was like, I felt that the T1000 was smart too.
Yes.
The choices he was making and the fact that he remained a police officer was, I thought, really intelligent choice.
Yeah, he also had like a personality. Like he would have like snarky, like nice bike. You know, he just takes it. You know, so he has like personality.
But he has like 5 lines of dialogue in probably the whole movie. So
with his own voice, when he's imitating other people, he has more lines.
Robert Patrick, man, this is his star making role.
Yeah, he definitely has a great look for this. His skin and his face is very like smooth almost. And I have to mention, so in the second movie, we meet Miles Dyson, who is the inventor, I guess, of this
technology that becomes
chip technology.
That Joe Morton.
Yeah. So he was also in another movie we did. Do you remember?
Yes, he's in Paycheck.
Yeah, he's one of the CIA agents in Paycheck who tries to extract memories from Ben Affleck in the beginning of the movie. But we see him through. But yeah, so in this movie, he kind of, once he realizes what so Sarah tries to kill him to prevent all this, and then John and Arnold come and stop her. She stops on her own when she sees him with his family and stuff, but once they explain to Dyson what his invention does, what his technology does, he's willing to help them destroy it.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. Dyson, obviously he kind of sacrificed himself to help them, but so he's a cool guy, but the first time you see him, he's like with his family, and it's like, oh, I sympathize with this guy who supposedly brings about the end of humanity, but he's just like a guy trying to just do what he thinks is right. He's trying to...
Yeah, he's just inventing... He's inventing something that's like, he's almost there, and he's, so close.
Wasn't like originally like supposed to be like advanced prosthetics or something like that's how it got started, something like that.
Well, he wanted to like have technology that can learn and replicate human beings. So like he wanted this to be like a pilot of an airplane. Like this can save so many lives. This can like this can do so many good things for the future.
Eliminate human error. Sort of thing.
Right.
Which is not that doesn't make him a bad guy.
Yeah.
Too once he learns what it does, then he stops it. So he made good choices once he had the knowledge. But
it'd be very easy to have something like, no, I must see the evolution, which is my favorite cliche villain motivation. I must see the evolution of like the species or this technology.
Right. Yeah, he wasn't a villain,
No, but I liked him kind of redeeming what he did. But he had pretty brutal death.
Yeah, he gets a brutal death.
I felt that he didn't really deserve that by the end. Like, I get, okay, he dies, and that's fine. It's still kind of sad because, like, he has this whole family that we just saw, and they were, like, really upset about it. But, like, okay, but, like, he
gets shot up, man.
He gets shot up, yeah. But, he went down with his work, so I suppose that's kind of...
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, a lot of people die horrible deaths with, like, his foster parents... Like you don't see what happens. You don't see what happens to his mom, but you assume it's horrible. And then his foster dad, just gets shanked through the face.
Yeah, he's kind of a dick.
Through milk.
Oh yeah, he is.
The guy's kind of a dick, but yeah, it still is. Yeah, most people are dead.
It's such a cool, and it was so horrifying, but cool at the same time as a kid. The first time I see like the T1000 go into like the lava pit and the molten pit, and he like just starts changing into all the people that he like took the thing. I'm like, what a cool image, like. That, like, he's, like, trying to hold on for, like... So he just keeps reverting back to everyone he, like, pretended to be.
I agree it was, like, cool. I felt it was a little much. Especially because when Arnold died, he just kind of sunk down, and that was that.
Right.
But, like, it was like, okay, so he's being, like, really extra with his dying in this lava pit.
They gotta be like, you gotta know he's dead.
Yeah.
This guy's dead.
Yeah, it was cool, though, seeing him kind of morph into these different people, but...
Then his face floats and then...
And turns inside out.
Yeah.
Turns into a bubble, yeah.
Yeah, I liked, though, when he was frozen, and then he kind of comes back, because you're like, okay, good, he's finally dead, but then, like, because it's so hot in there, it melts it back. So that was cool. I think we can all kind of say that we liked the second one better than the first one. I think I can kind of...
Yeah, in terms of, like
just...
Like an action movie and all that stuff.
Movie,
yeah. But, I mean, the first one was still good.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was bad, but the second one did have bad to the bone.
Yeah,
Yes,
I know.
So...
Yeah, it's definitely obviously more polished. The first one's set in '84, so it's like deep in the '80s. Like I was telling Jen, like the wardrobe and like this is the '80s that you don't see in like '80s parties.
80s,
authentic 80s.
Actually, the '80s, yeah. Where I was, because we were kind of talking about that. Really, when in the first movie, when Sarah's in the tech noir dance club, and I was like, most '80s that people portray in movies now is like a tiny aspect of it, of like bright colors and like
leg warmers,
right?
But
side
like,
ponytails.
Yeah, but this movie, the first one came out in the '80s, so it's much more accurate.
Yeah.
But it's not. The hair is crazy, but it's not so drastically different.
Right. I mean, because almost everyone pretty much dresses casual.
Yeah.
In real life, 90% of the population most of the time is going to just walk around in normal, regular clothes, like comfortable clothes.
Yeah.
And so, but like, of course, when you're thinking back on a decade, you're going to think of the most, like, this was like the hot piece of attire.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm sure at some point we're going to be seeing movies where everyone is wearing, like, yoga pants and leggings. And everyone like, did everyone really dress like that? Like, well, no, but it was a thing.
Yeah, exactly. So in the second one, it's the same sort of idea. We kind of touched on it earlier, but now it's two Terminators.
Yeah, it's a good way to raise the stakes. It's like now robot versus robot.
Yeah, which is cool because the movie really, the overall story of the series is man versus machine. And so it was cool to see in the second one, machine versus machine.
Yeah.
Or like machine plus man versus machine, I suppose.
What I thought was interesting is that I think we're led to believe that similar to John being born by his father being sent in the past, I think that the technology, if I'm correct, was invented by them having the future technology, right? Because they had the chip, which made it happen when it does happen. So it wasn't like they got it and they made it faster. It was like, no, that's how they get it to make it come out by when it does. So in both sense, like on both sides, the time travel makes the creation of both sides of the war pretty much. You know?
Yeah, so that's cool. Then I guess it is more relevant when you think about it a little bit more.
Right, yeah.
So, scientific accuracy, there's not really much for us to go on. Maybe once we get to Genesis, maybe we'll have a little bit more details.
Yeah, I think, I forget which movie it was. I think in the first one, no, they say it's like a time displacement equipment, you know? So it like displaces you in time. I don't know. But the thing with, I think similar issue that I had with like 12 Monkeys, you had to like, how do you choose where to go? You know, because the Earth is moving around the sun, which is moving around the Milky Way, which is moving through the universe. So, like, how do you input coordinates in your future device to be like, go back in the past? Where? You don't have X, Y, Z. You also have to have, like, X, Y, Z, and then time, and all this other stuff, and all the X, Y, Z is moving, so I don't know.
Yeah, you need coordinates and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you need, like, universal coordinates.
Which I actually think in Deja Vu is better than something like 12 Monkeys, because in Deja Vu, it does feel like at least they're more considerate of stuff like that, of those kind of like consequences. Well, it's only a few days, so it's not as drastic, but it does seem like they're working to put it specific places instead of
but also in Deja Vu, they say a wormhole, so there's a start and a finish to a wormhole, so you just send it through a wormhole. And there's no wormhole, they get sent to the past, you know, so you have to like choose the location. Let's say with 12 Monkeys, they get sent to the past. Yeah, so it's like you have to kind of know where you're gonna go, unless you, because either way, even if you create a wormhole in the past, you still have to find where to put it and where to make it. But if you have a wormhole that's sent to the past, then it's fine.
Yeah. So, relevance to the story, you kind of just touched on it. Other than them just being sent there, you're kind of talking about how the time travel does affect the future and the past, technically. it's all about John and Sarah, and things that happen to them in our present day during the movies affect the choices that they make and other people make in the future. So the time travel is relevant to the story more than maybe meets the eye at first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely in a meta sense. Obviously in the plot of the movie, you don't see someone time travel in the second or third act to save the day, but it does frame the world and obviously frames choices and kind of sets up the story, obviously. So it definitely is relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not so much as I don't know, some other movie that has them jumping through time all the time. So
yeah. Cool. So clothes and sets, we kind of talked about the clothes a little bit, about how the 80s is portrayed more accurately.
And the future stuff, too. We see them with, kind of, post-apocalyptic technology, armor, body armor, guns, and all that stuff. So, I don't know. I guess
guns are very easily accessible in this movie, no matter what time period it is what I found. Because even in 84, Arnold, goes to a gun shop, which, that was a thing, I guess.
There's still things. There's still things.
Well, I mean, he robbed the guy, to be honest. He was like, oh, you have a waiting day period. And he just nope, they're mine now. He just, loaded up the gun and shot him and then took all the guns he wanted. So
right, but, this guy was still okay, so which one do you want for your home defense or whatever?
That's very common.
Yeah.
I mean, the guns, I won't go too deep into this, but Matt knows that I literally have a scene in a script that I wrote that actually... pays homage to the Terminator 1 gun scene. Because there are these crazy guns. There's a gun out there that's literally a shotgun with 4 chambers that hold 4 shotgun shells in each that you can rotate. It's completely legal.
That's
completely
crazy.
legal. You can shoot 4 shotgun bursts in one barrel, change it, and keep shooting 4. Totally legal for quote-unquote home defense.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's crazy.
Speaking of shotguns in this movie, they're really accurate. A shotgun, that'll spread. But in this movie, it's like a baseball. It's shot directly. When it hits a window, it's baseball's gone. Or when a crowd and he shoots a shotgun, it doesn't spread and hit him. It just goes right to where you're pointed at.
Right.
In real life, it would spread.
It would
be collateral damage for sure.
It'd be a lot harder to dodge a shotgun, which is funny because in cinema, particularly James Cameron movies, I've noticed shotguns are always seen as pretty much the most powerful weapon, more powerful than machine guns. Are shotguns.
Yeah, I like the dramaticness of him loading and cocking it.
Yeah,
with
cool.
one hand is pretty cool.
It is cool.
So there is that.
And him with the minigun was great. It was oh, that's totally you, and then he busted out with the cops and just hits all the cars and all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Would you guys want to experience this time travel as the Terminator in either movie?
Or as Reese?
Or as Reese. Okay.
I mean,
I wouldn't want to be Reese, but
I mean, you get to have sex with Linda Hamilton, but there's a high price to that.
Yeah. You die about 12 hours later.
I mean,
I would maybe.
Well, technically, all the people that time traveled in these movies died.
True.
Because
all
3 Terminators and Reese all died.
That's true. Then maybe it's not worth it.
This is not the lowest on my list. It would be cool to be the T-1000 for a day, but I wouldn't want to be evil.
No,
it would be
that's
cool
true.
to be him for a day.
Yeah, I agree. I feel more often than not, when we do these movies, it's an immediate no. Or it's yeah, that'd be fun, there's no consequences, whatever, in Hot Tub Time Machine. But, in this movie, it's kind of probably not, but it's not that bad.
I will say, if I was in the future and someone said, you have to go back and, protect this person because otherwise the Earth's going to go, I'm yo, sign me up.
Yeah, I'd rather
be... Back.
That's true. In this universe, I'd rather be in the past than in the present future because it's just destruction and death and tanks rolling over skulls.
Right,
so.
You're 91 was a good year.
Yeah. I mean, to
Cheap
be...
McDonald's menu.
To be one of the characters that actually time traveled in these movies, I'd say no. But Matt was saying, or Hyatt was saying, if I'm a person in the future that had to use the stuff, then I would, because it seems pretty safe. You don't really have, your brain doesn't fry. You're naked, which is fine. It's not that big of a deal.
I'll find clothes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think to have to agree to do this time travel, I'd say sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So other notes that you guys wanted to point out? Oh, I do have to talk about, so I ranted about this in Back to the Future, but frickin' Kyle Reese pulls an entire page out of the phone book because he needs to remember Sarah Connor's address. I've talked about this before, so I'll make it brief this time. Why is that okay? That's like 50 names at least. Those pages were like really
front.
small print. That was probably like 100 people that like someone who lives on that corner not gonna find a phone number because you're an asshole. You can just write it down somewhere.
Be considerate, Kyle. People need to call people. I don't care if the world's in danger. Write that down.
I know. There was a lot of phone books in the first one, obviously, because they're looking at different Sarah Connors. But it's funny because, like, the Terminator, obviously, he's a robot, so he just looks at it and then he doesn't take it out. Mm-hmm. And then I joked, like, when Sarah Connor does it, she's like, damn it, this page is ripped out or something, you know?
Yeah.
Like it would have been funny to see like her react if, like, that was a phone book that Reese took it out of or something.
Yeah. I think we touched on all the notes I had.
Yeah, I mean, the movies obviously are action movies, so a lot of the time we're just like watching action and stuff like that. So I didn't have that many notes, you know. We kind of touched on the meta world of all the time travel, all the implications.
And we talked about the future versus past being in flux or set in stone, right?
Right, yeah. With these movies, we don't really know if it actually did change. It wasn't like as soon as they destroyed the chip, Arnold started to vanish or whatever. Right. You know, they didn't do any of that stuff. So we don't know if like. Mm-hmm. If since they're in the present day, if like that's set in stone and the future changes or anything like that, you know, so it's kind of like we don't know if those tropes are in this world, but
yeah, we didn't see immediate consequences. So, okay, do you have any other notes, Pat?
I did have one that I wanted to bring up. So, something that's really interesting about the first one is that it was made on a very low budget,
right?
And so you definitely feel that more of that slasher vibe to it. Lance Henriksen is in this movie, in the first movie as one of the police officers.
From
Bishop.
Aliens.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that like James Cameron reuses.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, yeah. Obviously, that guy.
Were we talking about, is Michael Biehn in something else that he does?
Michael Bihn's in Aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in Aliens, yeah.
And I think... No, for a second I thought Michael Biehn had like a small part in True Lies, but he doesn't.
Oh, that's right.
You want to talk about Bill Paxton?
Yeah, Bill Paxton. He was the punk leader in the first one, obviously, and Bill Paxton is then in Aliens, so he's another one of Cameron's.
Is he the punk leader who like he takes the clothes from?
Yes.
I don't know if he's that one or the one with the tire track on his face. I don't know which one he was.
I don't know. I'd have to go.
But he's one of the punks. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's kind of a fun little bit. Cool. Okay, so should we do final reviews?
Yeah.
I guess. All right. I'll start since I chose the movie. How about that?
Sure.
I'm going to rate both of these together just because they're, fairly similar movies. One is better than the other, but for the sake of efficiency, I think since the time travel is the same rules, let's just rate them both with one rating for each.
For time travel?
Yeah, one for time travel and then one for the movie, so it's not 2 and 2. So my movie rating for Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 is... I really like the second one, and I like the first one. It almost, in some ways, feels like a setup and like world building for the second one, which the stakes are higher in the second movie. So, I do like it. It is a lot of action, but it's fun. I'm gonna give it 7 out of 10. I think for both movies. What about you?
Well, I gotta split it up. I can't do it for both because first Terminator I would give 7.5. Second Terminator 2, I'd actually give a 9.
Wow.
Because I just think as far as action films go, I mean, there's really not much more you can ask from an action sci-fi film. It's well shot, well made, well acted. It doesn't drag on too long. It's just so well done. I know IMDb it's like number 48 or something, like all-time greatest films for the second Terminator. But and it's deserving of that. Like it's a really strong 43, really really strong film. It's about as good as action films get, particularly in the 90s. So yeah, that's my movie grade.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Hyde on that because I was thinking 9 for the second one too, and I was like, I want to give the first one a 9 because it definitely does, like you said, Jen, it definitely does help frame the second one, and it is kind of good in its own merit in terms of low budget kind of slasher action movie that has some sci-fi stuff in it. But I would definitely want to give it a 9. But the T2 is really good. So I might just be right there with you, High, with 7.5 for Terminator 1 and 9 for T2.
Okay. So time travel, there's not a lot that we kind of learn about the time travel. So it's hard for me to, as much as I do like these movies, it's hard for me to kind of give it a decently high time travel rating. The rules that we do have are solid on their own, so there aren't really time travel holes that we've noticed. But that being said, we don't know enough about it to really kind of delve much into it. So 4.5 out of 10. I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with you, Jen. I'm gonna give it like a 4.5 in terms of time travel because there's not a lot of ways for them to mess with the time travel, and it's consistent. The rules are consistent. Like there's not a lot of like curveballs. Like all of a sudden now you can do this with time travel.
Yeah.
So I like that they stick to the rules pretty well. So yeah, 4.5.
Yeah, I agree with you guys both. I had just 5 on my head, so like, yeah, I'll just give it a solid 5. But yeah, same reasons. There's enough. It's obviously relevant enough, like we said. It kind of frames the world and makes everything happen. We don't really know much about it. We don't really know the implications of T2 seeing these 2 movies. So it could just be that they saved the day, and now the future is going to be changed for the better, which I'm fine with. If that's what James Cameron intended, then great. If that's all the rules start and end. We see implications of like how things always happen, then we see things how they change. So I think it's there's definitely stuff to think about, and it's fine. There's no glaring issues, but there's not enough meat to like really hold it up higher than a 5, I would say.
Okay. So Rotten Tomatoes for the first one, wow, that's interesting, is at 100%. This obviously came out way before Rotten Tomatoes existed, so these reviews are
by people that wanted to review
very
it.
Nostalgic. The critics' consensus, though, with its impressive action sequences, taut economic direction, and relentlessly fast pace, it's clear why the Terminator continues to be an influence on sci-fi and action flicks.
Yeah, I mean, it's only 57 reviews that made the 100%, so I imagine people sought out to review it. And
That's
if you
pretty
did...
good. I mean, 57, that's a lot, though. But, yeah, average rating was 8.8 out of 10.
Yeah, like if you're going to review this movie, chances are you wanted to review it, so chances are you liked it.
Yeah.
Someone that was like, oh, I don't like the movie, they wouldn't go out of the way to be like, negative review. Well, I guess they would, but
I don't know. I think it depends on the person.
Yeah.
So, the second movie on Rotten Tomatoes is 93%, 63 fresh, 5 rotten, average rating 8.4 out of 10. Consensus says T2 features thrilling action sequences and eye-popping visuals, but what takes this sci-fi action landmark to the next level is the depth of human and cyborg characters. I think it's interesting that the other one is higher than this, to be honest with you. But, maybe that's because people like this one more, so someone wants to make it rotten more.
Right.
Yeah. Arnold White, you're probably on that list. He's the guy the only human being in the world to give Toy Story 3 a bad review.
And Get Out. Toy Story 3 and Get Out. For some reason, Arnold White didn't like those movies.
He's a nice guy. But it's what's funny, this is such a rant, but I'll be quick. What's funny about him, if you ever look up movies he likes on Rotten Tomatoes, he likes bad movies.
Right.
But he doesn't like good, solid movies. So I think it's really...
Is he like a troll or something?
He must be. Now I'm curious.
He just has some bad taste, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Childhood issues, probably. But, okay, so... Our next episode is Hyde's Choice. What did you pick?
Well, we're going to be discussing The Flash.
The TV show.
The TV show.
Woohoo!
That's on the CW, starring Grant Gustin and Candice Patton, amongst others. This has become a very, kind of almost surprise hit on the CW. It's one of their landmark shows for sure. And so we're going to be talking about this because The Flash actually involves quite a bit of time travel. It starts in season 1. Mm-hmm. And really, it becomes the crux of the show by season 2. And so we're going to break down several of the episodes and the show in general.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing, for sure, the Flashpoint episode, which is the first episode of season 3. And we might even do Paradox, which is the second episode of season 3.
Yeah, we kind of have to, go beyond one episode because the time travel stuff, it has an arc, so it isn't just one episode. Well, there are episodes where it is about time travel, like in season 1 when they first introduced it, but a lot of, the meat of the time travel is a series-long arc, or a season-long arc. Yeah,
so there's an episode, I think it's Out of Time, I think it's that one, or Rogue Time, something like that. One of these, there's so many time labeled episodes, but in season 1 there's an episode where we first see Barry can go through time, and so we're going to talk about season 3 as a whole because that is the most time travel-ish, But I've been watching this show since the first episode came out. And then once that first, in season 1, was that time travel episode came out, I told Matt that he had to watch it.
Yeah. I remember the night of the episode, you're like, superheroes and time travel, you have to watch this show. And I was like, all right.
Yeah, so good.
It's also a very landmark episode of The Flash. It's maybe one of their best ones.
So we'll probably talk about that one too, just because it's a really good one. So catch up on your Flash if you're behind, so you can listen to our discussion.
It's all on Netflix too, right?
Yeah, it's on Netflix. So CW has a newish deal with Netflix right now. So like once their seasons end, a couple weeks after that season ends on TV, that whole season will go up on Netflix. So all the CW shows are on Netflix right now, and that's why, if you wanted to know. So cool. I'm excited to talk about The Flash. That'll be really fun. I really like that show. So, okay, social media. We are at Time Travel Trio on Twitter and on Instagram, and we are the Time Travel Trio podcast on Facebook. Please follow us on all of those things. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any suggestions of TV shows or movies that you'd like us to cover, please let us know. We'd love to move them up on the list if you're a fan. And we are also on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. Please rate, subscribe, follow us on those to keep up with all of our new episodes. And personal, I am at Jen Marlis on Twitter and on Instagram.
I'm at Foreman in Space on those as well.
And I'm at Robinson is Hyde.
And
with that,
we are out of
time.